May God bless your day and, well, your entire week ahead, listener, because
Yeah.
today we are diving into an ancient true crime story. And it's one that asks a truly terrifying question. What actually happens when an entire society completely loses its moral compass?
Yeah, that's the big question here.
Right. And we are thrilled you are here with us for this deep dive.
It's honestly a privilege to explore this with you because the narrative we're looking at today, it's as raw and revealing as it gets.
It really is. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack this wild, almost cinematic historical account from the book of Judges, specifically chapter 18.
Right.
And we are pulling extensive notes from two incredibly comprehensive study Bibles for this, the Holman and the NDA, just to help us navigate this material.
Which we definitely need for this chapter.
Oh, absolutely. And let me tell you, this isn't some dry, dusty historical record. It's this shocking mix of political ambition, religious scandal, mob violence, and outright theft.
Yeah, it has everything.
It really does. And the backdrop for all of this is a period of total anarchy in ancient Israel. The text summarizes the era with this chilling, recurring phrase. It says, in those days, Israel had no king. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes.
Which is just, that phrase is the ultimate description of a societal freefall.
Yeah.
And the study Bibles we're referencing, they really emphasize its significance here. This isn't just, a casual record of bad behavior.
Right. It's deeper than that.
Exactly. It's a profound sociological and theological look at what happens when a society completely abandons an objective, authoritative standard of truth. Because when there is no central authority and everyone is their own final judge of morality, you don't end up with some liberated utopia.
Definitely not.
No, you get chaos. You get a world where the strong simply consume the weak. And honestly, the most sinister part.
What's that?
They often try to slap a religious bumper sticker on that exploitation just to make it look righteous.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Which actually brings us perfectly to the first group taking full advantage of this chaos, the tribe of Dan.
Right, the Danites.
Yeah. So from the macro backdrop of this total societal anarchy, we zoom in on these guys. And they have a massive problem. They are essentially homeless.
They are. And it is crucial to understand why they're homeless, to really grasp the mechanics of this story.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Well, the Holman and NAA notes point out that they basically failed to conquer their originally allotted territory.
Right.
Back in the book of Joshua, the tribe of Dan was given this beautiful piece of land stretching toward the coast, but there was a problem. The Amorites.
The Amorites.
That's tough.
Very tough. Fierce, actually.
Yeah.
And they pushed the Danites out of the valleys and right up into the hills. So instead of trusting God and fighting for their rightful inheritance, the Danites, well, they compromised.
They just gave up.
Exactly. They gave up. And now they're squeezed into this tiny claustrophobic area on the border of Judah, right between two small towns called Zorah and Eshtaol. So they're desperate. They're living on top of each other, feeling claustrophobic, and they decide they need an easy way out.
Right.
Instead of fighting the tough battle they were assigned, they decide to look for a soft target.
Yeah.
So they send out 5 valiant men as spies to find some new, easier land to take.
Yeah.
They head north, up into the hill country of Ephraim, and they make a pit stop at the house of a man named Micah. And, listener, this is where the story takes a fascinating turn.
It really does.
Because while these 5 spies are hanging out at Micah's compound, they hear a familiar voice. It's a young Levite.
Yeah, and the study Bibles actually suggest they might have recognized his specific regional accent, or maybe they just knew him from previous travels.
Right, so they ask him, what are you doing here? And he just spills the beans. He reveals that Micah has basically hired him on a salary to be his personal private priest.
Which is wild. And to understand how shocking this is, we really have to look at the Israelite religious system at the time.
Yeah, explain that for us.
Well, Levites were a tribe specifically set apart to serve the whole community, and their service was supposed to be centered around the tabernacle, which at this time was located in a place called Shiloh.
Okay.
Shiloh was the authorized, centralized place of worship where the Ark of the Covenant rested. You do not just, go rogue and become a private spiritual contractor for some wealthy guy in the hills.
Right, so Mike is basically running a counterfeit shrine here.
Exactly, a total counterfeit. And he has hired this Levite to give his DIY religion a veneer of legitimacy.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because this young Levite, he isn't acting like a spiritual leader at all. He's acting exactly like one of those modern social media algorithms.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. You know how an algorithm doesn't actually care about the truth? Its only job is to figure out what you want to see and then just feed it back to you so you keep scrolling and the platform keeps making money.
Yes.
That is this Levite. He isn't serving a higher truth. He's just serving his employer's ego to keep his retainer.
That is a brilliant analogy. He really is an echo chamber in human form. The Holman notes explicitly describe his motivation as mercenary.
Wow, mercenary.
Yeah. He's just there for the paycheck, the food, the clothes, and, well, the prestige of having a secure gig. He has completely divorced his religious title from any actual moral conviction.
Which is so dangerous.
It is. So when the 5 Danite spies tell this human algorithm about their mission to find land, they ask him to do his priestly duty. They say, consult God for us so we can know if our journey will be successful.
And the Levite, I mean, he doesn't even hesitate. He doesn't go pray. He doesn't do anything. He just gives them this rubber stamp blessing. Go in peace. Your journey is under the Lord's view.
Right. And this is just a masterclass in manipulation. It highlights a deeply dangerous concept, which is transactional religion.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Well, the study Bibles point out how incredibly deceptive this response is. The Levite makes absolutely no effort to seek actual divine guidance.
Not at all.
Right. He simply uses the generic covenantal name of God, the Lord, to validate what the spies have already decided they want to do anyway.
So he's just telling them what they want to hear.
Exactly. He uses the appearance of faith to give divine approval to a completely selfish human agenda. Transactional religion happens when we aren't, asking to be aligned with God's will. We're just asking for God to sign off on our own desires.
And fueled by that fake rubber stamp blessing, the spies keep moving north, and they find their target, a city called Laisha.
Lush!
And let me tell you, if you are a desperate militia looking for an easy win, Laish is the absolute jackpot.
Oh, totally.
The people of Laisha are living peacefully and securely. The text says they live like the Sidonians. Now, for some context here, the Sidonians were these wealthy maritime traders living on the coast, people known for their quiet, prosperous lifestyle.
Right, they had a good thing going.
Very good.
Yeah.
And the people of Laisha are just like that, unsuspecting, with no lack of anything in the land, but crucially, they are geographically isolated.
Very isolated.
Yeah, they are way out in a valley near Beth Rehob, completely cut off from Sidon by the Lebanon mountains, and they have no treaties, no defense pacts, no allies.
They're a sitting duck,
Yep.
a completely isolated, peaceful utopia. They have wealth, they have agricultural abundance, but they have absolutely no military defenses and no friends to call for help.
It's tragic, really.
It is. When the 5 spies see this, they realize they don't have to fight those fierce Amorites down south. They can just massacre these peaceful people up north.
Which is awful.
Yeah. So they race back to their brothers in Zorah and Eshtal and basically say, we found it, God has handed it to us. And notice how they weaponize the Levites' fake blessing here.
Oh, right.
They use that hollow religious approval to motivate an entire army to commit an absolute atrocity.
And the mobilization is immediate. 600 armed Danite warriors march out, and they're taking their families and livestock with them because they do not plan on coming back.
No, they're moving for good.
Right. They head out and camp at a place they name Mahanadan, which just means the camp of Dan. But instead of marching straight to Laish to fight, they take this very specific, deliberate detour.
Yes, they do.
They head straight back into the hill country of Ephraim, right back to Micah's house.
Because the 5 spies told the 600 warriors about the treasure trove inside Micah's rogue sanctuary.
Of course.
Yeah. Micah didn't just have a private priest, he had the whole setup.
What did he have in there?
Well, he had an ephod, which was a priestly garment often used for divination. He had household gods called teraphim, which in the ancient Near East were sometimes associated with claiming family inheritance rights.
Okay.
And he had a carved image and a cast metal idol. It was an entire DIY religion starter kit, completely made of valuable silver.
So just picture the scene here. It is literally an ancient heist. You have 600 heavily armed, battle-hardened warriors standing guard right at the gate of Micah's compound, completely intimidating anyone who might try to interfere.
Right.
Meanwhile, the 5 spies walk right through the front door, stroll into Micah's private shrine, and just start packing up the gods.
Just boxing them up.
Yeah. They grab the ephod, the teraphim, the carved image, the cast idol. But hold on, the logistics of this are kind of breaking my brain.
How so?
I mean, if you can literally pack someone's almighty gods into a burlap sack while the owner isn't looking, How powerful can those gods possibly be?
Exactly. And that is not just a modern observation. That is actually one of the primary theological points the original author of Judges is making here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It highlights the utter absurdity of idolatry. These are objects that are supposed to offer divine protection, yet they can't even protect themselves from being shoved into a bag by 5 thugs.
That's hilarious, honestly.
The biblical author is dripping with sarcasm here. Like, you are putting your eternal trust, your family's safety, and your entire worldview into objects that require 600 armed men just to move them from one house to another.
It's completely ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But the theft forces an immediate confrontation because the freelance priest, that young Levite, is standing right there.
He is.
He sees them taking all the religious gear and asks, "What are you doing?"
And notice how the Danites respond. They don't offer a theological argument. They don't try to justify it morally at all.
No.
They just use pure intimidation. They say, quiet, put your hand over your mouth. And then they execute a hostile corporate takeover.
A corporate takeover.
Yeah, they offer the Levite a massive promotion. They basically say, come with us. Why be a priest for the house of just one man when you can be a priest and a father to an entire tribe in Israel?
Wow. So he goes from being this private backwoods chaplain to a tribal bishop in 10 seconds flat.
Yep.
And the text notes a chilling detail here. It says the priest's heart was glad.
Glad. Think about that.
Yeah, he doesn't mourn the theft. He doesn't show an ounce of loyalty to Micah, the guy who gave him a salary, a home, and treated him like a son.
No.
He is absolutely thrilled. He eagerly takes the stolen ephod, the teraphim, the carved image, and he physically hides himself right in the middle of the armed troops for protection.
And the study notes, they really emphasize the complete moral bankruptcy of this Levite here.
I can see why.
Right. Think about the sociology of what's happening. He is the spiritual leader. He's the one who is supposed to be pointing the people toward the true God, calling out their sin, and upholding the covenant.
But he doesn't do any of that.
No, instead, he is a pure opportunist. He follows the money, the power, and the security without a shred of integrity. It just shows how deeply the moral rot had set into the religious establishment of the time.
Yeah, definitely.
Because when the spiritual leaders are corrupt, when they just follow the strongest army, well, the general public doesn't stand a chance.
And Micah finds that out the hard way. Eventually, Micah comes home and realizes his entire sanctuary has been gutted, his silver is gone, and his priest has been poached.
He lost everything.
Everything. So he rallies his neighbors, they chase after the Danite army, and because the Danites are moving slowly with the women and livestock, Micah's group actually catches up to them.
Right.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Micah starts shouting at them from behind. The heavily armed Danites turn around and calmly say, "What's wrong with you? Why are you shouting?"
Such a casual response to a guy they just robbed.
Right. And Micah cries out, and this might be the most pathetic, tragic line in the whole book. He says, "You took my gods that I made and my priest, and you've gone away. What else do I have left?"
That phrase, "what else do I have," is the heartbreaking, empty core of this whole episode.
It really is.
If we look at the underlying mechanism here, this is the inevitable psychological result of building your life on things you can control.
Wow, say more about that.
Well, Micah's entire spiritual, emotional, and personal security was tied up in man-made objects. He literally says, "the gods that I made." And because they were man-made, they were easily carried off by men. When your ultimate security is something that can be stolen, you will eventually be left with absolutely nothing.
It is a devastating realization for him.
Yeah.
He thought he had bought God's favor, right? He hired a Levite. He built a shrine. He made silver idols. He thought he had manipulated the divine into protecting him.
But it was all an illusion.
Completely. And when he demands his security blanket back, how do the Danites respond?
They respond with pure mob logic.
Yeah.
They don't deny stealing the idols. They don't try to claim they had a legal or moral right to them. In a vacuum of authority, they appeal to the only thing left: violence.
Right.
They basically say, "Look, Micah, you really shouldn't complain so loudly because some of our men are pretty hot-tempered. If you keep talking, they might just attack you, and you'll end up losing your life and the lives of everyone in your household." It's the ultimate expression of might makes right.
It's essentially an ancient mafia shakedown. Like, nice little family you got there, Micah. Be a real shame if something happened to them just because you wouldn't stop crying over some silver statues.
Precisely. The rule of law is completely gone. The covenant with God is ignored. The only law left is power. The strong take whatever they want, and the weak suffer what they must.
It's brutal.
It is. And Micah, looking at 600 hardened warriors and realizing he's completely outgunned and outmatched, he just turns around and goes home.
Wow.
He walks away empty-handed, having lost his gods, his priest, his money, and his dignity.
Which sets the stage for the tragic finale. The Danites, now fully equipped with a stolen religion and a corrupt priest, continue their march north to Laish.
Yeah.
And exactly as the spies planned, they find a people who are quiet, unsuspecting, and completely undefended.
And the result is a massacre.
Yeah.
Both the Holman and NWA notes describe this in very stark terms to ensure we understand the difference between this and other biblical events.
That's an important distinction.
Very important, because there is no divine mandate for this attack. This is not a holy war directed by God to clear the promised land of wickedness, like the campaigns under Joshua.
Right.
This is just a brutal, opportunistic land grab by a desperate tribe looking for an easy target. They strike the peaceful people of Laish with the edge of a sword, and they burn the entire city to the ground.
They wipe them out completely. No one is left to deliver Laish, because as we established, they were too far from Sidon, isolated in the valley, with no allies.
So sad.
The Danites then rebuild the city right over the ashes. And they rename it Dan, after their ancestor. But they don't just build houses. They establish their stolen religion.
Right. They institutionalize the idolatry. They take Micah's carved image and they set it up for themselves as the center of a new rogue worship center in the north.
Completely defying the true tabernacle at Shiloh.
Exactly.
And this brings us to the biggest shock of the deep dive. The author of Judges has been holding back one crucial piece of information this entire time.
The big reveal.
Yes. We finally, at the very end of the chapter, get the name of the mercenary, corrupt, opportunistic young Levite. The text reveals his name is Jonathan, the son of Gershom, the grandson of Moses.
Yes. Let the gravity of that sink in. The grandson of Moses.
It's unbelievable.
The man who stood before Pharaoh, the man who received the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai.
Yeah.
The man who warned Israel endlessly with his dying breath in Deuteronomy about the absolute dangers of idolatry. That man has a grandson who is literally operating as a gun-for-hire priest for a stolen silver idol to justify the massacre of innocent people.
It is a staggering fall from grace.
Yes.
But you mentioned something incredible when we were prepping for this. The study Bibles point out a really fascinating textual detail about this revelation, right? It involves a literal scribal cover-up.
Yes, and this is one of the most fascinating footnotes in biblical manuscript history.
I love stuff like this.
Both the Holman and NWA Bibles highlight this. The scribes, known as the Masoretes, who were meticulously hand-copying these Hebrew texts centuries later, they were so horrified that the grandson of the great Moses was a corrupt idolater that they actually tried to alter the text to protect Moses' reputation.
Wait, they altered the biblical text just to protect a historical figure's legacy? How did they even do that?
It's all about the Hebrew letters. In Hebrew, the name Moses is Moshe, spelled with 3 consonants, mem, shin, he.
Okay.
The name Manasseh is Menashe, spelled with 4, mem, nun, shin, he. The scribes took the original name Moses, and they inserted a single Hebrew letter, a nun, right in the middle of it, changing the name to Manasseh. But because they had strict rules about not deleting or fully changing the sacred text, they made it a suspended nun.
A suspended nun?
Yeah, they wrote the letter nun slightly above the regular line of text. It was their way of signaling, we know we are adding this, but we desperately want you to read Manasseh instead of Moses.
That is wild, but why Manasseh?
Because Manasseh was known later in Israel's history as one of the most wicked, idolatrous kings of Judah. So the scribes were essentially saying, this terrible, corrupt priest fits much better in the family tree of the wicked King Manasseh than in the lineage of our holy prophet Moses.
But the actual original text?
Well, modern textual criticism, supported by the oldest manuscripts, confirms the original reading was undoubtedly Moses.
The scribes literally couldn't stomach the reality of the moral decay. They tried to edit the tragedy out of the family tree.
They really did.
But the original author of Judges wants us to feel the full, uncomfortable weight of that tragedy. It demonstrates that godliness is not genetic. You can have the greatest spiritual heritage in the world, the best advantages, the best lineage, and still end up completely compromised if you adopt a worldview where you just do what is right in your own eyes.
Absolutely. And the tragedy doesn't stop with Jonathan. The text concludes the historical narrative by explaining that the tribe of Dan maintained these stolen idols. Jonathan and his descendants served as priests to this false rival worship center all the days that the true house of God was located down in Shiloh.
So it became a permanent fixture.
Yes. The study Bibles point out that this single act of selfish, pragmatic ambition established a foothold for idolatry in the northern kingdom that ruined generations.
Wow.
It lasted for centuries, all the way up until the captivity of the land, which most likely refers to the brutal Assyrian exile hundreds of years later.
So listener, what does this all mean for you? We've talked about ancient tribal geography, the vulnerability of the Hula Valley, stolen silver statues, and ancient scribal cover-ups. But how does this connect to our lives today?
Well, if we synthesize everything we've looked at from these study notes, Judges 18 isn't just a historical curiosity about a heist. It is a blaring warning siren about the mechanisms of moral relativism. When a society, or an individual, decides to abandon an objective standard of truth, when we just do what's right in our own eyes, we invariably end up justifying terrible things.
Yeah, we really do.
We justify theft, we justify betrayal, and we justify cruelty toward the vulnerable, just like the Danites did to the people of Laish. And the most dangerous part is, like the Levite, we will actively seek out echo chambers to put a religious or moral stamp of approval on our selfishness.
Which is so easy to do nowadays.
Very easy. We use faith as a tool to get what we want, rather than submitting to a higher truth to become who we are supposed to be.
It is a sobering warning. I want to leave you, our listener, with final thought to ponder as you go about your day.
Right.
We spent some time talking about those scribes, the ones who inserted the suspended nun to change Moses' name to Manasseh.
Right, the cover-up.
Yeah. They couldn't face the messy, uncomfortable truth of their own history, so they tried to literally edit it out. Ask yourself, are you ever tempted to do the exact same thing in your own life? Are there failures, bad habits, or uncomfortable truths in your past that you try to rewrite or cover up with a suspended nun to protect your image?
That's a great question.
Because true growth doesn't come from editing our history to look better. It comes from facing the messy reality of who we are and seeking genuine course correction. It's something to think about.
That is a profound takeaway. You can't fix a compass if you refuse to admit it's broken.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us for this journey into the ancient, messy, and deeply relevant world of Judges. We appreciate you taking the time to explore this with us. And as we sign off, I want to say goodbye by reminding you that God blesses all the listeners. Take care, and we will catch you on the next Deep Dive.